The fire has begun. Gaza is burning. And this is just the beginning. The ceasefire is over. Missiles are raining down. From Tel Aviv to Tehran, the Middle East is on fire. This is no longer just a battle between Israel and Gaza. This is a spark that could ignite World War III. Has Iran started its revenge? Has America entered the battlefield? And is the world racing toward the point of no return? In today's video, we bring you the facts the mainstream media won't show you, and the terrifying truths shaking the global stage. Buckle up, because this is not just news, it's the storm before the explosion. Collapse of ceasefire and war ignites. Again, the ceasefire crumbles. How it all unfolded. The fragile ceasefire, brokered by Qatar and Egypt between Israel and Hamas, lasted barely 3 weeks. It collapsed under the weight of renewed mistrust, secret raids, and strategic provocations. Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, reportedly conducted a covert operation in Gaza's Shuja'iyya neighborhood, allegedly targeting a Hamas arms cache. The resulting skirmish killed 4 Hamas operatives. In retaliation, Hamas declared the truce void, accusing Israel of betrayal and pre-planned escalation. Hamas responds with firepower. Within hours of the Israeli raid, over 300 rockets were launched from Gaza into southern and central Israel. Cities like Ashkelon, Tel Aviv, and Be'er Sheva were struck. Sirens wailed through the night. Israel's Iron Dome intercepted dozens, but many missiles broke through, hitting residential areas, causing casualties and widespread panic. Hospitals across southern Israel were placed on high alert. Israel strikes back with full force. Israel responded with overwhelming air power. F-16s and F-35s bombed Gaza's residential towers, Hamas command centers, and suspected tunnels. Videos emerged of explosions lighting up the night sky. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said, "We are not seeking war, but we will not allow terror to dictate peace." Over 200 Palestinians were reported dead, many of them civilians, including children. The world watched in shock. Iran reacts strongly. Iran condemned Israel's attacks and pledged support to Palestinian resistance groups. Iranian Revolutionary Guard units were reportedly placed on high alert. In a televised speech, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, said, "Every drop of Palestinian blood is a nail in Israel's coffin." Iran's K-Bar-X hypersonic missiles were paraded publicly in Tehran as a show of deterrence. Hezbollah joins the battle. Soon after, Hezbollah began launching mortar shells and rockets from southern Lebanon into northern Israel. The Israeli military responded with artillery fire. The northern front risked opening into a second major war theater. Israel began mass evacuations from towns like Kiryat Shmona and Metula. Gaza in crisis. Inside Gaza, the humanitarian situation spiraled. Power grids collapsed. Hospitals ran out of medical supplies. UN convoys were denied entry. Thousands of families took shelter in UN-run schools and mosques. The Red Crescent declared a state of emergency. Social media was flooded with images of dead children and rubble-strewn streets. The world reacted with horror. Global outcry and blame game. President Biden reaffirmed Israel's right to self-defense but urged restraint. Netanyahu said, "We will do whatever it takes to defend our citizens." The United Nations Security Council held an emergency session. Arab countries blamed the U.S. for backing Israeli aggression, while Western nations accused Iran of escalating the situation through proxies. Is this the Iran-Israel war now? Experts began warning. This is no longer just a Hamas-Israel conflict. With Iran directly involved and Hezbollah opening a new front, the region stood on the brink of a full-scale Iran-Israel war. U.S. aircraft carriers moved closer to the eastern Mediterranean. Israel's military command was placed on full war alert. The people pay the price. On both sides, civilians suffered immensely. In Gaza, entire families were buried under debris. In Israel, parents fled with children into bomb shelters. Fear, anger, and uncertainty gripped the region, and yet the war drums grew louder. The people pay the price. On both sides, civilians suffered immensely. In Gaza, entire families were buried under debris. In Israel, parents fled with children into bomb shelters. Fear, anger, and uncertainty gripped the region, and yet the war drums grew louder. Iran's next moves. Iran issued an ultimatum to Israel through backdoor diplomatic channels. It threatened missile retaliation if Israeli attacks on Gaza continued. Iran also activated its regional allies. Houthi rebels in Yemen launched drones toward Israel, while Iran-backed militias in Iraq began mobilizing. China enters diplomatically. China condemned the violence and urged both sides to return to dialogue. However, Chinese naval movements in the Gulf hinted at deeper strategic interests. Beijing publicly criticized the U.S. for unbalanced support to Israel and offered to mediate peace talks. Russia's calculated response. President Putin criticized Israeli actions and accused the U.S. of stoking chaos in the Middle East. Russian jets were seen taking off from bases in Syria, and military drills with Iranian forces were intensified. Russia signaled its backing of Iran if direct conflict breaks out. America's tightrope walk. The U.S. deployed the USS Eisenhower carrier group closer to the region and offered Israel full logistical support. At the same time, the White House tried to de-escalate tensions, fearing a broader regional war that could engulf U.S. forces. Arab Street explodes in protest. From Cairo to Amman to Istanbul, millions protested in support of Gaza. Israeli embassies were attacked. The Arab League convened an emergency summit. Saudi Arabia, while cautious, warned Israel of unforeseen consequences if civilian deaths continued. Global media and United Nations. The United Nations issued a condemnation of the violence and demanded an immediate ceasefire. Human rights groups labeled Israel's actions as potential war crimes. Meanwhile, Western media outlets were split, with some calling out Hamas and others highlighting Gaza's suffering. The nuclear shadow. With tensions between Iran and Israel reaching a breaking point, fears of nuclear escalation began circulating. Iran hinted it would target Israeli nuclear facilities if attacked directly. Israel reactivated its Dimona nuclear site defenses. The possibility of a regional nuclear event, once unthinkable, now felt dangerously real. Are we heading to World War III? Analysts warned that if Iran and Israel fully engage, with U.S., Russian, and Chinese interests entangled, it could snowball into a broader international conflict. The global community now faces a grim question. Can diplomacy still stop the warpath? Or is the world watching the early chapters of a catastrophic global war?